That's your aura. And so you put it 9 feet above you, below you, from side to side, and that's sadhana, and the sun's coming up, and you're in absolute bliss by the time the sun's coming up, and you can have your day in which you've never experienced it before. It's like polishing you from the inside makes you glow on the outside, because there's something about, they call them sadhana eyes, and they're big and round and blue in my case.
I'm Deepak Chopra. You're watching New Realities.
Welcome to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld, and this program is a continuous series on the expansion of consciousness and people who have come forward and lived their lives in ways that were an activation of this higher connection to source. And that is why I'm talking to my new good friend Karuna, who just finished and completed and published this incredible book, Light on Kundalini. So what had to change for you to go from high fashion model to this other?
Well, I think it's only one life, actually. I don't think there is separation or division between a model and a yoga instructor, if you like, or a yoga interest. Or I think actually they go super well together, and because it's beauty from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
It goes from the reflection, the mirror of beauty from the outside to beauty from the inside. And one always wants to feel good, no? Doesn't everybody want to feel good? So when you have these demands, and they are a lot to handle when you're in your early 20s, and you have no experience, and you're being, asked to go to various places and meet all different types of people all the time. There was a blessing that I had when I was about 12 years old. My mother took me to a silent yoga retreat, and we went in our VW bus from Table Mesa, we live in Boulder, and up to some forest somewhere. And my mother is a Slovakian opera singer, so she didn't really like the woods that much. So she kept chatting the whole time, and it was supposed to be a silent yoga retreat. And so we got kicked out in the end, giggling our way down the mountain in our VW bus. And she gave me a flavor for, mom was somebody who gave me a lot of awareness around taking care of yourself. She had a beauty store, a cosmetic store called Danielle Bon Cosmetique, and it was on the hill. So prior to that, she had a candy store where I used to sell all the, candy to all the hippies, the smelly, patchouli oil people that we were all part of as children. And so mom had this beauty school, and I have a picture of me like modeling for the first time at age maybe 14. So I got a taste, a glimmer of how to take care of myself. And she showed me how to do that. But when I took it to Paris first, all that sort of fell apart, because every cosmetic that I was trying to be beautiful with failed me miserably.
What do you mean failed you?
I couldn't use all that stuff in Paris. It was a different climate, and it was the moisturizers and the this and the that, the things you think you need as a young model going to Paris on a one-way ticket was a lot of makeup, right?
Right.
And that stuff just broke out my face. And I was literally trying to get a job. And, hence, going through it the first 3 months until I was, until I got the opportunity to clear up my skin and start a whole new routine of how do I find myself in this misery actually at the first 3 months of leaving Colorado and going to Paris on a one-way ticket with, Paris planning and all those people.
Well, let's talk about that because that's the interesting part of your book, I think, is this observer effect. It's like, yes, I think maybe you learn from your mother being thrown out of a yoga retreat not to take it so seriously, and that people get very caught up in their ideas.
Oh, very nice. I have God bumps. That's a great analogy. I
Yes,
love that.
and in the way you write your book, it's a kind of observing point of view of your life. You're looking in as a kind of almost life review, and you're you're seeing the trials and tribulations, but you're not complaining about it. You're taking
You
it all
know,
in. Yeah.
you and I could be tapping into some mastery here because I notice as I move through my day to day,
Hmm.
I am an observer of how I move through it because the minute I lose the focus, and that doesn't mean I'm beaming and like intense, I'm actually stress free and allowing the movement to take me into the space it wants me to as an observer. So I'm not attached
Hmm.
to, you know, how they taught me, which no one taught me to do things.
Right.
I'm a self learner for sure and developer. And because, and that's why I love my book to say this, there's an innocence about it.
Yes, there is and there's an innocence about you in the
Oh.
way you've moved through the world as you describe it. I mean, you married into the Laura Ashley family as Caroline Ashley.
I loved my mother-in-law. I loved my father-in-law. Short amount of time, I got to play along with my mother-in-law, Laura, was just such a robbery of it wasn't enough. Thank God I had a little. And she gave me the torch, and I feel like she's still working with me, giving me this torch of the divine feminine, the fierce, bold divine feminine. And I'm not much on having the conversation around where we're beaten up, the women are beaten up. I'm not a feminist in that way, or I just think we need to really recognize what we have in front of us. And when my daughter was born, all I wanted to do was hold her hand and cross the street with her.
Yeah.
When she got to be 2 years old, I couldn't wait for that moment to really bond with my daughter. And I think that we miss out by not observing how we are every day.
Mm. But
And
you've
so
done that. You've been a yogi your whole life because yoga is
yeah.
a kind of act of observing incarnation, right? Because we're
Mm.
not the body, but we're using the body to extend the soul's awareness into material form. That's what I think yoga is.
Yeah, and I think, I don't think I think the power of the word right now is paramount
Mm,
for each other. And what you say and how you say it to each other is is union with the other. And
yeah.
it's union with yourself. Because I feel like when people have a conversation like you and I, we are reflecting in our past most of the time. We're thinking about what we're going to say next. I'd like to practice just being here, being
Okay.
present.
How do you be present in a yoga sort of way? And one touching story in the book is how you came home to your beautiful place in Colorado and it was completely flooded. Do you want to talk about that moment a little bit? How you process that sort of shock?
Yeah, that was during my flood.
You,
I really like that picture.
you know why it's so good?
Why?
because all the joy and sadness emanates from your face there.
Yeah. I look at these situations as the very moment they happen. I was so grateful. It was Halloween, and I was, I just dropped my son and daughter-in-law, off to move them to San Francisco. So literally came home and all the windows were fogged from the inside out. Normally in a cold environment, it's outside the fog, right? So I come in and it's torrential rain
Mhm.
coming from the second floor. So it basically, and I'm alone. And oh my God, what do I do? And I made a phone call to the neighbor and he said, turn off the well. So I turned off the well. And then I thought, oh my God, what do I do now? In a pot, as the floorboards were
Mhm.
growing higher, peaking, and everything was starting to warp, and I need to get that things out of the house. And 24/7 came, and all of a sudden I had a shift in consciousness around trust.
Mhm.
Everybody knows how to do their job very well.
Mhm.
This is very unfortunate, but you can't go there right now.
Mhm.
You can't go into the emotion, commotion,
Right.
chaotic mind right now. You have to stay super focused. And I felt the yoga just come in and help me out. And that is a reality, your show, a new reality that we find in traumatic situations, even if it's death.
Mm.
Whatever moves us, can we trust it? That somehow all these people that I've never met before are going to show up and with integrity move my belongings out. And so I lost so much. So thank God I wasn't attached to any of it.
Right. Right.
Things are worse in other people's situations. And we
Yes.
need to align that, to the reality of how lucky I was,
Mhm.
because I thought about it the day before. I was paying so much insurance.
Mhm.
And sure enough, you think about that and something happens and you're so grateful you have paid that much insurance.
Right. Right. Right.
So
The
it's
yogic perspective, I think, has been with you. You're aware of a kind of detached spiritual nature. And the book reflects that. Light on Kundalini reflects that
thank
kind of
you.
way of being. Talk about those adventures that you've had and what stands out.
For me, because I feel that kind of support and love, it opens up my heart, not
Mm.
my ego, but my heart. And I get to share with the world the truth about tragedies and things that turn around from tragedies and help us find, help along the way. So when I left Paris, Eileen Ford gave me a ticket home to New York and took me under her wing. And I wasn't her typical girl. She's a blonde, blue-eyed girl, that Ford girl.
Mhm.
And she's very tidy and she's very perfect. And I do these shootings with Uli Rose, and I'm sitting on a toilet with my tongue out, being sassy. And she's like, Eileen Ford's like, if you ever do that again, and it's not even in my book, actually. If you ever do that again, you naughty, naughty, naughty little girl, very like uncharacteristic
But they
model.
published that picture, though.
It was in Mademoiselle magazine. It was
Yeah.
very well taken.
Yeah.
And Uli, those photographers and I have such a good time. We still to this day, if I ever do any work, it's a love, Alan.
So has the yoga. I
The
mean,
yoga, because hear me out for a second. And Kurt really helped me identify what
mm,
kind of yogi I am. And that was helpful because I'm not one to like put a label on
mhm,
me.
Yeah.
because I'm forever changing, right? We talk about the moon centers in yoga, and women have 11 moon centers. They're all energetic centers in the body that change every 2 hours.
A moon
Eyes and ears,
and the nose.
nose, mouth, chest, navel point, and the
Right.
ground, right? So every 2 hours, a woman changes. Seriously, not every 2 days, but every 2 hours.
Every two
So
hours, a
that's
woman is focused on a different moon point, you're saying?
the moon centers are focused on the woman. We don't have to
Oh,
focus on them. They're ultimately the guides and the ones that are switching us up. And we feel a certain way.
how does someone work with, or a woman, I guess men are different, how does a woman work with those moon centers and making her life
The
more?
easiest way to do it is to learn to meditate. So you align yourself with a purpose.
Mhm.
You know who you are before you leave the house. You don't go out like a vulnerable, person in a needy way. No one should, no men or women, no one, none of us should be like that. We should all consciously be practicing in the mornings before we leave our homes, always.
Yeah.
And then when we get in our cars, always putting the odd g'day name, jigad g'day name, sak g'day name, siddhi goody deve name, the protection around you. So you're in tune with your reactiveness, because the reactiveness is what's getting you in trouble.
Well, that's why you're a yogi, because you were able to be the observer of the reactiveness. You'd have the reaction, but maybe you wouldn't indulge it. That's what I say is a yogic daily practice. But getting back to that first question, going to Paris, being a model, and 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 in that innocence, what were you thinking about who you were in the world at that point, at 21, leaving? And then was it an
20,
evolution, or did you always have a perspective? I'm just curious about that.
no, it was an evolution for
Talk
sure.
about that. Talk about who you were back then and what you thought of yourself, and maybe how you matured into something more.
I was a very young person, very, very young person. I'd go to, my dad's football games on a Friday night, and I was a cheerleader, and my first job was at McDonald's, to tell you the truth, so I could get a bicycle so I could be independent. And I was vegetarian, so they fired me at McDonald's. And then I get a job at a clothing store, and I sell little old ladies piquette pants, which are polyester pantsuits. And I love these little old ladies, and I'm just dressing them. And that's when, Pamela Hansen and Bernard Grant walk in and say, "We want to photograph you." And they were photographing people for the light company, Vicky Light's company in Denver. So they had to really quickly put a book together for me, a portfolio, so I could go down, because there was a French agent coming. And I was just like me, right? I was just like, let's go. And, when I told my parents that I was going to try to go to Paris, there was no way, because sadly, it was not what we were influenced to do, was leave the home. It was that time where the independence just drew me to Paris. I just had no turning back once I got the offer. And so when I was settled in with these creepy modeling agents who are very, it was like I had to really get my shit together fast, because when I got picked up at the airport, this guy they sent to pick me up took me to his office, and I started in shake in his car because I knew what was happening. And refused to get out of the car. So it was happening so quickly what was really going on here for models, and how to and I naturally knew how to protect myself. I am a survivor. I mean, I've been independent in that way just by, getting my own jobs at 16, 17, and 18, and then leaving at 19 for Paris. So it was a rude awakening being in Paris. I lost all my luggage. I had $350. I had no support, financial support whatsoever. And I literally had a CU sweatshirt, a pair of jeans, and these wooden shoes. And it was rainy. As I said, the face was suffering, and I would slip in these wooden shoes in the metro, and I would fall. I mean, I fall, as you know. I mean, I fall. And it was just hectic the first 3 months. And then I'm in this pension with my friend I barely know, and it's little single beds above on the Rue de Odeon, above the market. So 5 o'clock in the morning, the market's starting. I'm 3 months into it. I grab a Vogue magazine and I open it up and I start to flip through the pages, and I said to myself, this guy would love me. I stopped. I could see me with the jaw and the big hair and I saw myself in all these girls, and I said, I'm going to meet this guy. So I started, because I was going out on their idea of me, the agent's idea of me.
Right.
Sending me to Elle and, French Vogue. But I suddenly got this download. So my friend takes me to Joe Allen's restaurant, where I see she's waving to her agent. Her agent's there. And I look at this woman, and she introduces me, and I say, you look just like my grandmother. This beautiful Slovakian face and this big hair. And she's like insulted. Oh my God, she's French. And I tell her she looks like a grandmother. And I said, no, you don't understand. My grandmother's so beautiful. So she said, you need to go see Guy Baudin. And here I was with the magazine, and he was the photographer. So I planted that awareness, that seed, and I brought that. Because when I walked into Guy Baudin's office, which was in the third arrondissement, pitiful office space, studio, 20 of the most beautiful Swedish women sitting there, gorgeous, and me in the jeans, CU sweatshirt, and candies. I'm embarrassed, right? And Patrick from French Vogue comes and walks in the room, and I'm already apologizing, and he puts his arm out and he reaches for me, and I'm like, are you telling me to leave? I was like ready to walk out the door. I knew he was telling me to leave. Like, and he brought me back to Guy. And Guy takes this book that Pamela and I had put together, and he looks at it like this. He's staring right at me, and he's not, and I'm like, I know the book's shit, it's terrible. And he said, merci, au revoir. And I go out of there embarrassed, and I'm walking back to Renee at Mademoiselle, a new agent who just sent me she wasn't my agent. And I walked into her office, and she said, you're booked for 6 months of French Vogue. Wow. I said, you've got to be kidding me. And so for a young girl to get, as I said, when you and I saw each other and you guys put me in front of that set and you held space for me to talk about my purpose and my truth about loss and love, it's so paramount that we all have this community around us to support us. Anything we do. And it just happens to be the arts that I love.
Yeah. Well, did you find there was more of that holistic community within the yoga world as opposed to the modeling world, or you find it wherever you go?
Oh no, you don't find it. Oh no, you don't find it wherever you go. No.
Or maybe you do.
You are it wherever you go.
Yeah.
You carry it. And that's a good thing to practice
Hmm.
doing, actually, because I come from the NFL background, the National Football League. Oh
Hmm.
no, they were, hard brothers were, football coaches for the NFL. And I mean, we're talking competitive family lifestyle.
Yeah.
And there were 6 of us. So it wasn't, and I'm the only yogi. And, and that's a different language. But the truth is, when it comes down to getting, sick or having cancers or illnesses, people need people like me
Yeah.
to lean into them and try to show them a way. All of us need each other to get out of that mindset, because I feel the big, pharma world out there is medicating so much that we don't even know who we are. Actually, we actually don't know who we are. Alan, I know you know who you are, but there's so many beautiful aspects to your natural being, right?
Hmm.
You're very childlike as well. You've got this sense of awe. And so do I. And that's a really, that's a beautiful
Yeah.
um
That
privilege.
that keeps us excited about the world, and you've done these incredible things, and there's more coming. That's the thing, right? That's what you're feeling. It's like, yes, you were a fantastic model, and Laura Ashley, and this great yoga teacher. And so now what? What do you feel? And this book now, but I think there's, something bigger, maybe, or a next phase. And it's like, yes, your divine feminine work. And so think about that for a second, because I want to show that clip of you doing your practice, the Kundalini practice, and
The
the
lotus.
lotus, yes, the Kuan Yin lotus. I
This
guess.
comes so naturally to all of us. When you put your thumb, your ego, and your pinky, your Mercury communication finger, when Mercury goes retrograde, as it is right now,
Mhm.
we go backwards, right? Technology breaks down. We get the opportunity to see each other.
Mhm.
That's how I play Mercury. And yet there's these inconveniences because of the technology and the things we do to make sure we're busy, busy, busy all the time. Because if we're not busy, 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 we have to face ourselves. So lotus grows from the mud, right? So with these other fingers, index is Jupiter, middle finger Saturn, ring finger Sun, opens at the heart, you get this feeling of okay, it's good, because you don't naturally take lotus. So maybe, maybe it's time for us all to meet each other with a namaste or a sat nam and bow to each other in this Aquarian age.
Yes, that is a beautiful way of putting it. Let's just go to this video now.
Prosperity doesn't mean that you will have wealth, health, and happiness. This is a lecture of Yogi Bhajan. Prosperity is like the fragrance of a rose. The best way to explain prosperity is to say it is like a rosebud when it flowers and opens up and shares its fragrance. That's the moment, which lasts a few days, when a rose flower is prosperous. When a man or woman is prosperous, it is the fragrance of security, grace, depth, character, and truthfulness that a person can share. Like a candle emits light, a human emits prosperity. Taking lotus at the heart center and smelling the beautiful fragrance of a rose. Open your fingers wide so that the tattvas, earth, wind, fire, water, ether, are awake and connected as your antennas straight up to the sky, that beautiful blue sky. Take the pinky, Mercury, the communicative finger, and place the tip together. Take the id, the ego, and place the tips together. The bottoms of the palms touch right at your heart center. You keep the fingers awakened and you open unto prosperity. Close the eyes, look over the tip of the nose, and breathe into your heart center that in which you can offer, generously give out, and in turn, that in which will come to you without you looking for it. This is lotus at the heart center. Meditate on long and deep breathing. Satnam.
I did feel something. I felt a little peace. I felt I felt not a little peace, but I felt myself drop into a different level of consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's what mudras and mantras and it's subtle shifting of consciousness, these ways. And I guess Yogi Bhajan did bring a lot of that to the world with Kundalini.
To the West. And
the
his
West.
download, it was not to, I mean, he did it against the Sikh, tradition to share the secrets of the teachings. But he knew when he came in 1969 and lost all his luggage as well and all his money. And he came into Canada and he was wearing bags on his feet, literally, because he had a pair of sandals and that was all, and it was winter. He just knew we needed a higher frequency of development in yogic practice. And the hatha yoga that he trained and did, and most people do now, hot yoga, hatha yoga, whatever yoga, is all good, but it takes 22 years to master that. Kundalini yoga takes 6 months to master. Because like you said, you felt something. And that shift of consciousness can give you that awareness in your dream state, in your walking, living life state, in your lifestyle state. It just shifts the awareness on what you eat, what time you go to bed, how early you get up in the morning to do your sadhana, your practice where you line up all your demons. Inevitably, all of us, and I would beg to differ that there's one person in this universe, if they're conscious, gets up and says, I need to sit with myself. I would say that most people just get up and get going. And some don't even take a cold shower, let alone a hot shower. And that changes your frequency. It stimulates your cells. You become very anti-aging. The whole body, you get into, even we say, just put your big toe in the cold. At least it's something. And what it does is it raises your integrity to a frequency that humans can develop in and around themselves all the time. It's super easy, even if you just take lotus and you breathe consciously, because this is a mudra. And your inhale through the nose and your exhale through the nose is the sound current, the vayus, the expression of the nervous system is how you breathe. I'm teaching Rianne Eisler, 93 years old, how to breathe again. And she's been through, she's incredible at it. And we do her own little mudras with it that she's gotten these downloads. I listen to these students that have everything in them that want to wake up, grow up, clean up, show up, open up, to lift up, ultimately the whole planet, to stop the damn war, to
Right.
stop mentality of the military,
Yeah.
to to really come together to free these women and children. And in Afghanistan, Denise Godo and I talk about Afghanistan so much in our conversations, and now we're seeing documentaries.
It's the
So
world population needs awakening and love and upliftment,
yeah,
being listened
and
to.
each one of us can do that. And that's why I say it's not Guru Jagat, it's the practice that she fell in love with. And of course, in my book launch yesterday, I had Pamela Hansen and Lisa Love. Lisa's, they're my best friends. They started me on this journey. And to go backtrack to the modeling, without Pamela sending me with a portfolio, without Lisa, her best friend, being on right there as I walked into my second interview. And she turned around and I recognized her from her picture and I bawled. I cried my eye. I was like, somebody sees me and I know this person. I didn't know anyone. I would go around the corner in Paris and say, hi. And they'd all go, huh, you know?
Yeah.
And the French, and so we need each other. And that's why I say yes, the vision boards and the visuals and the fashion and the beauty and the film and the yogic world and the health food and the this and that is all great, but it's not anything unless we know and understand how to accept it and use it and not abuse it.
Beautiful.
And that's the key, is the abuse part of it. That you don't want to get into that egoic, I am great. Even calling yourself a teacher is not even worth it. Because when you identify as anybody, you have to live to that. And some days you just want to listen to the wind and the shutters at the seaside and disconnect. And it's very hard, Alan, to disconnect when you're attached, as you know.
You're right, but your life, as an example, has been through these ups and downs, and now that you can look back, how do you tell people not to be as attached?
Buddha says that suffering leads to compassion.
Right.
So, as Kurt Johnson identified, my type of yoga is bhakti. I'm a bhakti yogi. That might teach you one thing or might teach you Kundalini yoga the other. It might just lean into you and tell you how to, drink celery juice, and it might just sit back and laugh with you at the fire. It's no idea or identity to care for someone or love somebody, but it comes from devotion. And that's why I had Kuan Yin behind me.
Devotion to what, you're saying? What is it what you devoted to? What is that?
Love,
Love, okay.
more love, unconditional love, my children, my grandchild that's going to be born soon. Motherhood teaches you, even if you're mothering a dog,
Yeah.
four-legged, or a winged one, or the plant kingdom. That consciousness where you don't step on a spider,
Yes.
What's difficult is that I've been producing so many other aspects of this yogic practice is now when it comes to me writing this book, and I put myself on the cover deliberately so I could see myself and remind myself, oh yeah, and then open the book, and look, oh, the way out, the way out assurance, and he, what is this? Falling better and succeeding better, failing better and succeeding better. So there's just so many chapters that remind me that this is for now, and this is a lifestyle guide. And don't you want to switch up the language to be less aggressive now to people? Don't you want to switch yourself up to look at your patterns and your behaviors and say, that doesn't work?
So how do we do this? How do we reflect on what does work, what doesn't work?
The most important practice for every human being is sadhana.
Which means what?
It's getting up early before the sun rises. All the energy is focused on you. Doing the japji, the sound of the soul, the song of the soul from Guru Nanak, the first Sikh Guru. Reciting japji, not memorizing anything. Reciting, using the manual, or listening. Because it's switching up at that early hour, 4:30 before the sun rises, switches up your patterns in your brain, downloads the subconscious negativity patterns that you will see through the Aquarian mantras of Vayanti Kayanti, the first mantra at the navel, second chakra, third chakra, Ekonkar, fourth chakra, Sat Siddhi Siddhi Akal, fifth chakra, Rake Rakinahare, sixth chakra is the intuition where you just open it up on the Wahe Guru. You chant and you chant and you chant, and you see all your subconscious patterns coming. You see all your demons holding you back, because in the subconscious, we're held back. We're only reflecting on what didn't work in our life. Who needs that? That's why no one changes. That's why we keep acting like, at 50 years old, we keep acting like we're in our 20s. We want to check out. No, wake up. And then the seventh mantra is Guru Guru Wai Guru Guru Ram Das Guru. And that's your aura. And so you put it 9 feet above you, below you, from side to side. And that's sadhana, and the sun's coming up. And you're in absolute bliss by the time the sun's coming up. And you can have your day in which you've never experienced it before. It's like polishing you from the inside, makes you glow on the outside, because there's something about, they call them sadhana eyes, and they're big and round and blue in my case, and you're really consciously kind and compassionate being.
Besides that, you have a lot of integrity, you're solid, like people can count on you, and maybe that's just your soul nature, or maybe it's from years of practice.
I've done 35 years of practice, but I started where everyone starts, in all those yogic practices.
Where was that?
Every single one of them. Well, first it was the Integral Center, right? And then I moved to London and I opened up the Life Center. And so I had to interview Alan Herdman and Mary Stewart and all these. I had to find the teachers to teach at that center. So I was doing Anusara and Iyengar and all the yogas. I did all of them, every single one of them. And I loved them because I was devotional, and I paid close attention. But when I went to my class, I had moved back to Colorado from Santa Monica with my children and my dogs, and to live back in this beautiful log home we built. It was time, 6 years in Santa Monica. But it was only when I moved back here that I got my first, well, I got a proper movie, which was really amazing with Robert M. Young.
Mhm.
It's called Human Error. I played the wife of this one loser kind of guy. But there was a significant movie because it was all the first of CGI. And went to Sundance. We won an award. He was an elder. He's passed now, but he was phenomenal to work with as a director, Robert M. Young. I got that movie, which I wanted for the years I was in Santa Monica, going on tons of auditions because I moved us from Colorado to Santa Monica so I could live out my Bristol Old Vic theater days. I trained to be an actress in
Yeah.
Bristol. And I mean, that training was not easy, Alan. I met Daniel Day-Lewis at our cottage because he's best friends with my brother-in-law. I told him, "Oh, Dan, I'm going to the Bristol Old Vic." And he's like, "You're crazy. That is the hardest, most difficult experience you'll ever have."
Mm.
And he was sincere when he said that to me.
Mm.
And I got in and I went. And I had two small kids and a husband. And yeah, I moved to Bristol and they stayed in London. And 2 months later, here they all come. And now my sadhana was making sure they had 3 meals a day prepared. And then I'd go learn Shakespeare or Bartholomew Fair by Ben Jonson. They gave me the lead in. And you talk about wringing out yourself for devotion. That's what it takes, Alan. It takes us to really get down to the core, whether it's yoga or acting or whatever it is, motherhood or driving a lorry, right?
Did you love acting like you love yoga, or was it more hard work?
Oh, acting is so, I mean, when you can get in that blissful state like you can every day with yoga and acting, which is super rare in acting, yoga just kind of said, someone in the Kundalini yoga world, some big wig said to me, "Is this a big enough stage for you, Karuna?"
Mm.
It was a great question because I was trained on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's big enough for me, this stage. Of course, I'd love to get behind the camera again and do a movie. And 100, heartbeats, I'd do a movie if it was a great conscious script.
Mm.
That's what changed in modeling, when they start throwing the you know opportunities to make a lot of money but for a purpose that's only going to kill you,
Right.
what you're advertising.
Right.
That's when you get smart as a model and you kind of back out and say, "I choose my integrity over my bank account."
And yoga always had that integrity. I mean, that's what it is. If you,
Yoga has that.
Mhm.
It's a union. And why I call it light on Kundalini is light. It makes you light as well. It makes you honest.
Mm.
It's
Right.
very hard to be in that situation without like-minded people when you walk in as a yogini, as a yogi, as a yog. It's difficult because you kind of have to learn not to apologize for who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You have to own it. Yoga makes you own it.
Mm.
And if you can't own it, the practice, the discipline of yoga, then it will force you into situations like the flood
Mm-hmm.
or, any kind of things that happen to you, to the pain of the pain. You get to wake up that way. That's why I always encourage you to embrace the pain.
Right. Wow. That's a lot there. I mean, and you know, you're living this way now with that same passion in each moment. That's the sense I get. You know, and you've been so present in each of those episodes in your life that are you planning, what's your future? What's it look like? Where are you going with all this? I'm curious.
2024 has been a very good cleaning. It's been a clearing year. And that's why people have struggled so difficultly to understand why me. They'll go into that victimhood. No, I asked at the end of last year when I saw so much dirt, I said, switch it up for me.
Where'd you see the dirt, if you don't mind me
And
asking?
people's lives.
Oh, I mean friends. You mean your friends? You
Just people.
okay?
Friends.
Whatever. You
They're
don't
all
have to name names,
friends.
but you
They're all
saw the dirt, and what was it about that
I
happened
said
to you?
I see that people are stuck
Mm,
in that messiness.
yeah.
And then they lean into you, the light, not that I'm just the light, a light, one of the lighter types that travel alone. So I'm not codependent
Hmm.
on relying on somebody to do the work except my practice. And I just said, switch my language up. I don't want to bore people with the same language of understanding yoga practice and spirituality and the depth of love. I want people to, and what communications people, we are all saying to one another, that's got to change. This is not okay to bully and be jealous and envious.
Mm,
All of us need to focus on those angers and those desires and that greed.
mhm.
And we need to really see that there is a message of making contacts with out there into that universal oneness. That we can take a practice like the mind and see all the facets of it, all the projections of it, and all the projections of it, and aspects of it, and use them daily to understand ourselves better and take responsibility.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yes, so you,
There's too much suicide in this world with young people.
mm,
And that is a sign that we are not delivering what needs to be heard from the youth.
what would you do with the youth? How would you work with
I
them?
would sit with them in a big, huge circle and just embrace everything they say and let them speak. And I would listen.
Well, are you
And
doing that? Are you doing
I
that?
do. I am listening.
You are working with young
We
people.
need bigger circles.
You,
We don't want anyone struggling with that idea to take their life away from them.
right.
So I do mentor
Mhm,
women and men in the modeling world.
right.
I talk with them. I sit with them and I tell them the truth about what happened to me in that world. It's not all in my book. There's more to be told. And it's happening today the same way as it happened when I was, in the 80s. Those creepy experiences of giving a woman or man no choice out. No way out. It's in the industry
Mm,
and it's terrible situation. And I want to change it with this book. And I want to change it with the understanding that, there were, I did start changing it in my 20s. I sat with Eileen Ford and Jerry Hall was present, and we talked about, I said, I don't want people, I want a closed set when I'm doing, a lingerie shoot. I want a closed set. I don't want these people, and I don't want to have to judge these people and ask who they are. Just give me a closed set. And we set that paradigm. We set that.
Mm-hmm.
We got that.
Right.
I managed to, I was heading to a Ralph Lauren show, fashion show the next day to walk the fashion show. I was going to Mademoiselle magazine on my bike. I put the brakes on. Someone walked out in front of me. I flew over my handlebars and I broke both of my arms.
Wow.
And I went to the fashion show the next day with 2 casts on. And I said to Eileen Ford, we need insurance. We need to cover ourselves. We're not covered.
Mm.
So we put that policy in place. And I was 21.
Right.
So,
You said you also got a lot of more work when in the book you
well,
said.
they took pity on me at the Ralph Lauren show. And I had a best friend who was famously working, and Lisa Love introduced me to her, Esme, and Esme said, I'm not coming to shoot that catalog unless you take Carrie.
Right.
I'm going to bring Carrie. And so they would inevitably have to book me. So friendships, us sticking together, us girls sticking together. We talked about that with Pamela yesterday. We like consistency.
Yes. Wow. Well, I appreciate when you drop into that space of your passion and your convictions, and that is like a direct transmission there.
Oh, thank you for that insight.
Yeah.
I'm practicing dropping into that space a lot more.
Well, I mean, you don't have to practice, you just do it. So that's it.
Thank you.
And I think, your next step will have that embodied. So like talk about the work of the divine feminine and how you're expanding yourself.
She is so fierce, Alan.
Who is she? When you say she,
The divine feminine. When I got to know her, I started doing these interviews with women in the world. And I would bring, a crew with me, a film crew, and she didn't like a couple of the people in it. Yeah. So she just makes sure that I don't bring them again to the next filming.
Wait, but is she the divine feminine? I mean, my understanding is a little different. Is she a being outside of you? Because I see those.
No, she's me.
She's you.
She's
Yes.
me.
Yes.
But sweethearts out in this world listening to this, you don't know who you are until you jump into an unbelievable trusting project out of your comfort zone. You hire who you think should be a part of it, but the divine feminine will clear out. I had to figure it out. I didn't know that was happening when it was happening. It was more yogic practice and sadhana that told me that's what we're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Is
so
that clear?
that makes sense, but the way I understand it, as you being her, people think, and this is my definition, that we embody the archetypes, but I think the archetypes embody us. I think the archetypes exist as a bigger form. It's like a tree, and we're a little branch off that tree, but the archetype of the divine feminine, let's say, is that trunk of that tree, and you're just an expression, or women in that way are an expression of that divine feminine energy. you know, and
All of us
yes,
are different in that way, and yet we need each other desperately.
yes. And I
Like
think
a
she,
limb on that tree.
yes, definitely, yes. But the core of that is the essence. And I think
Right.
when women are engaged in like the act of giving birth, which is definitely a woman thing to do, it's like that is a moment where the archetypes takes on form in the embodiment because it just it comes from a higher place, that all that level, I suppose. I haven't done it myself, but I suppose it does.
The rebirth
Hmm.
of a soul is what you're speaking of. The awakening of your own birth once again. There's many, many rebirths we go through in this lifetime. It's not only the woman giving birth, but the rebirth of each one of us,
Mm.
if we allow ourselves to practice it. And it's just super available in a
Hmm.
practice. And it brings you closer to yourself, identifying more with the purity of you,
Yeah.
the core, and I often talk about, you know, you don't have to say anything, it's your essence, like you just said.
Yes. Yes.
That is a key. So better to keep the mouth and let people get you than to try to sell yourself or pitch yourself. That's what I'm not very good at, because I've only taken on the role of a producer, a facilitator. I graduated 170 students to become teachers.
Right.
That was for them. I didn't ask for anything back, any
Well,
recognition.
you're doing your sadhana. That's sadhana, isn't it? That
That's the highest caliber of a being, is being a teacher. And you
right.
don't even have to identify as a teacher,
But you
but
don't have
it's
to ask
how
for
you go about it.
right. You don't have to ask for anything back because you're getting it all back, it seems like. And but you're asking how can you do it? You're doing it. I don't think you need lessons. You are actually doing it.
I'm not asking how.
Oh,
I'm not asking how, because I feel like all those beings you're working with, I'm working with too.
right.
And I want people to know that don't feel alone and don't think you're the doer.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to be religious or believe in God or any. Don't worry about the words of sacredness or spirit, or just live your life in your way, in a kind way, a
Yes.
pure way.
Yes. Yes. That's what you're doing. That's what you've done. That's what you continue to do.
That's an acceptance.
So you feel like you've come to an acceptance of your essence of being in the world. I mean, you finished a
What more
chapter.
can, yeah, what more can one ask for than to be in this journey actively together,
Yeah.
finding each other? And please, in the beginning, it's not as easy ever. When you're, okay, I'm going to go take my first yoga class, that has an idea around it already, a projection. I'm not bendy, I can't touch my toes. It's not about that.
Hmm.
You can do whatever you want to do in that yoga class. Just sit and breathe
Hmm.
and don't think. You don't have to meet a criteria of yoga from the East. They're bendy, you know?
Right.
We're Western bodies. We don't bend like that. And then when we try to, we break. And there comes the lesson of pain. the pain of doing too much. Do less. Walk. Go into nature. It's a beautiful yoga practice, walking in nature.
And we can also talk about your work in the field of the divine feminine.
And the mother. The mother.
You're also very connected to the Native American culture, too.
So one of my names is Chante Iton Wawagalakawi, and that's woman that speaks from her heart. Now, I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask for Karuna either. These are all given names by Karuna in Varanasi, and it means compassion. But Chante Iton Wawagalakawi, I got in a sweat lodge in Vermont. Right. I didn't ask for the name. When they give you a name, you have to live up to that name.
I'm talking to Karuna.
Thank you.
Light on Kundalini. We've just gotten a few bits of light here in this moment of contact. And thank you.
Thank you.
For your sadhana. Your sadhana, as I understand it, has been about serving the world, not even individual. I mean, yes, individuals, but as a practice to humanity, a bigger picture.
That is where they are accessible. Yeah. It's not in the rushy rush world. It's with you and your love and however you want to interpret contact.
Yes. Thank you, Karuna.
Love you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.